We are recording. Hello everyone! Welcome to Red Jacks On. We're doing our first ever podcast in a room where we're all in the same room.
Yeah!
We're all here and we're not going to deal with any technical difficulties hopefully this time. So today I'm your host. I am Charlie.
I'm Rick.
I'm Fraser, present.
And I am Serhan. With us today we have...
It's me again, innit? You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
It's Gangster Joe.
It's your boy Joe!
What up, big pimps? I don't know.
What up, pimps?
I don't know, I'm happy to be here, boys.
Yeah, it's always good to have you, mate. Good to have you. And it's a really exciting topic today. This is something I've been really excited about for a while. So, as you've already guessed, because you've probably already clicked on it, we're going to be doing the War of the Worlds. And originally I was just going to be talking about the story of the War of the Worlds. And as I looked into the War of the Worlds, it turned out there was a lot more going on. Sorry, there was just some touching up going on behind the scenes.
And I haven't seen this boy in years.
We haven't seen each other in ages.
And we haven't seen each other in over a year, I think. Maybe just
the
under.
agreement was we'll do the podcast, but only if I can have either eye contact or at least one hand on each person.
I'm gonna. Can you swap seats?
No.
This
Rick,
No.
you chose
very warm.
That
You chose
is
your
the
seat.
mistake you have made.
His hands are very warm, mate. Yeah, I've been looking after him, don't worry.
I'm happy in my corner.
Yeah, I'm happy on my own little sofa over here.
And I love it.
So, we're
Yes.
doing the War of the Worlds, and I'm going to open it up with, we'll go around the room. What is the first thing you think of when someone says the War of the Worlds? What is your takeaway?
Unfortunately, Tom Cruise.
Yeah. The horrible Tom Cruise movie, is that same for you guys?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've seen the Tom Cruise movie, but I think the first thing that I think of was when actual live radio broadcast that was first
The story of it.
the
sort
actual
of thing,
story
yeah.
that got played over the radio. That's
Yeah.
the first thing I think of.
Have you heard that before?
I haven't. I knew what it is,
Yeah,
but I haven't
sick.
actually heard it.
It is
But
very good. Like,
Very
we'll put a
it's
link
really
in the
creepy,
description.
mate, seriously.
I do want to listen to it.
You can hear why people got scared. It's really bad. Like it's really invoking of fear. But we will touch on that today. And I'm guessing for you, Joe,
Yeah, it's the album.
the album, of course. It
I
is.
don't know when I first heard it. I think you showed it to me. Or,
I think your dad played it when we were on holiday once. So I mean, it
Really?
might have even been before that.
by the way, we're cousins, by the way. in case
We
you
are
know that.
cousins. Yeah.
People listen.
Partially shared childhood.
It's basically me who listens, so I'm reminding
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
when I listen in the
Just
car.
remember, Joe, we're cousins. Oh yeah, thanks, Joe.
Ah, good boy. Yeah, no, the same. The album, and then obviously, the album and obviously the book, and that's it really.
Yeah, you listened to the book
I've
as well,
listened,
didn't you?
yeah, I haven't got
Recently.
time to read.
Yeah. I know. I've done the same. I listened to the same one you listened to, and really, really good. So we will start with the original H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds from 1895 to 1898. Took him quite a while to finish it.
Wow.
So originally wrote it for Pearson's Magazine in the UK and Cosmopolitan Magazine in the US as a serialized story. So kind of like television, how we would wait per week. They done the same thing in like little serialized stories, and this was like apparently a really popular way that they used to do things to get people to keep reading their magazines.
Is that why it's split up in different books when you listen to it?
Yeah, so
I see.
He finished up book one in the serialized version, and then they took it on. This William Heinemann Limited was like, this is incredible, like we want to make it into a book, but we want to know how it ends because we've only heard the first part. So H.G. Wells had to go away, finish up with the second part of it, and then bring it back, and they were like, yep, this is fucking awesome, let's do it.
So it was super popular.
It was very popular. It was so popular that the sales were like going way up for the magazine, and that's why.
You think it's like the end of the 1800s, and like you're talking about aliens.
Yeah,
I'm sure they probably never touched upon it.
So there'd been a couple of alien stories, and there'd been a couple of like literally one other invasion story. Very, very different though. This was the first kind of first-hand account of someone going through an invasion, which we'll go through because I know you guys have no idea what I'm talking about in a minute. So we'll get onto it. So yeah, The War of the Worlds is one of the first stories to depict man versus extraterrestrial threats. It's one of the most commented works of science fiction canon, which means it's considered a classic piece of literature. I've got some notables, but I won't get into that until we have gone into the story because spoilers.
Spoilers.
He used the European colonisation of the Aboriginal Tasmanians. So, you know, the Europeans completely wiped out and it made the Tasmanians extinct. He used that as a kind of reflection on, okay, well, what if the most powerful force in our world was then treated the same way? And it's all about, capitalism, imperialism and stuff like that. So just, the idea of, well, we are the people causing this pain. What would happen if it came back on us? Okay. He hated war completely, considering he made a couple of books about war. He hated war. He liked putting it in people's heads of, but what if the shoe was on the other foot? Which this is why people loved him so much.
If your world was like completely turned on its head and civilization
exactly. What's it called? The Great Disillusionment. Like when the rugs pulled out from under everyone's feet and they're like, what the hell is happening?
I don't actually know if you actually mentioned the author's name.
H.G. Wells.
You're talking about it. I didn't think you actually mentioned
H.G. Wells. Do we know what H.G. Wells stands? Do we know what H.G. stands for?
Herbert Gareth.
It's Herbert George. And
Herbert George.
I'm hoping, Joe, you don't know this already. But do you know our granddad's name?
It's Herbert, mate.
Herbert George.
Herbert George.
Because his mum, Elizabeth, was a massive fan of H.G. Wells, and she named our granddad after H.G. Wells. I'm really glad you didn't know that.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That is.
So honestly, when I found that, and I only found that out 2023, it just gave me this passion of, it's so mad how something that we love has come back around crazy. Our granddad was literally called Herbert, and I'd never made that connection.
We were called him
Bert, yeah, Granddad Bert. But yeah, that's a nice little thing for us.
Oh, God rest his soul.
Yeah, so it was massive. It was such a big success. It spawned numerous films, radio dramas, album, comic books, television series, and just many other sequels across loads of different mediums. And he actually played a part in us going into space, because there was a reader of, which his name was Robert H. Goddard, was inspired by the book and helped develop both the liquid-fueled rockets and multi-stage rocket, which resulted in the Apollo 11 moon landing 71 years later. The idea of the Martians shooting their spaceships to come down to us inspired the idea of, well, we could do that from Earth and shoot up into space. In the book, it's a gun-type projection, which was obviously the technology was way beyond, so that's why we went into rocket fuels and stuff. But they're now working on a gun-propelled rocket that can send us into space after H.G. Wells. So it's still relevant to today's science.
Insane,
it's crazy cool. It's really, really fun. Right, so let's kind of I'll touch on the plot. I have got the whole story, but I don't want to spoil it. I actually want you guys and the listeners to go and read it or listen to the audiobook or something, because I think spoiling it would be a massive... it'd just be a massive shit all over what we're talking about today. And there is just so much more fun stuff to talk about. But basically, the idea of this story is it's a journalist's journey through an invasion. These spaceships start landing. They have no idea what it is. This is in a time where the idea of extraterrestrial threat is unknown. So they see this thing and they're like, wow, cool, a meteorite, but it's silver and shiny and smooth, how weird. Then they hear it's hollow, then they hear there's people inside it, so they just naturally think there's a man in there. They have no idea that there could be any threat in there. This thing comes out, kills everyone in the vicinity, and then eventually builds this thing that then loads of other spaceships start landing, loads of other these tripods get up and start running around and killing everyone. And it's this guy making his way through it, and it's an incredibly well told story. You never learn his name. There's only 3 names I think you learn in the entire book: Ogilvy the astronomer, and the 2 women that his brother's travelling with, because there's a separate little couple of chapters with his brother travelling through London, so you know what happened to the capital.
Terrifying, that is.
Just gassed, completely kills everyone. It's crazy cool. The Martians have tactically thought out how to attack this nation smartly. But yeah, again, I'm not going to ruin it. I don't want to get into every bit of it. We are going to listen to Jeff Wayne's musical version, not live on the podcast. We'll go away, listen to it, come back and finish the podcast. So you'll get a lot of the story there anyway, which is again why I don't want to talk too much about the plot. So yeah, we will kind of just close up on the book because I don't want to ruin anything. Presents itself as a factual account of a Martian invasion, and it's one of the first books to theorise the existence of a race more intelligent than people from Earth.
There's a lot of ejaculation in it.
There is a lot.
What? If you have read the book,
Wait, what?
If you read the book or listened to the audio book, there's a lot of ejaculation in it, mate.
Ejaculation meant someone acting crazy, and it said a few times in the book.
It came out in his trousers and ejaculated.
There is one sentence just the landlady comes to the door, isn't it? And she's standing there like talking to them, and her husband's ejaculating behind her.
Wow.
It's a different time. It's a different time, okay?
It's probably more closer to the original meaning of the word, I would imagine. But
probably.
if you didn't tell us that, we would have heard this story very differently.
Well, we've read that line and been like, hang on a minute, he's doing what? Behind who?
When
What?
I listened to because I listened to the audiobook, I was like, ejaculate. What?
And then he says it about 5 or 6 times after as well. You're like,
there's no ejaculation in the album, unfortunately.
No, they took all ejaculations out of the musical version.
Makes sense.
So, would we say that this is the point we will tell the listeners to either keep listening for our reflection afterwards, if they've listened to this before, or should we say to everyone, hey, go read it, go listen?
Oh, definitely. So I'll leave the album till the last. So there's a few other things War of the Worlds to talk about other than the book, because as I said, it spawned a lot of stuff, and a lot of this stuff is way more interesting than just telling you the story of the War of the Worlds.
Absolutely.
So we'll just jump straight into the Awesome Wells broadcast, because that is a big one.
Amazing.
Banging.
So in 1938, The War of the Worlds was a Halloween episode of the radio series at the Mercury Theatre on the Air, directed and narrated by Orson Welles as an adaptation of H.G. Wells's, no relation, novel of The War of the Worlds. It was performed and broadcast live 8 p.m. ET on October 30th, 1938, over the CBS radio network. The episode is famous for inciting a panic by convincing some members of the listening audience that a Martian invasion was taking place, though the scale of panic is disputed as the programme had relatively few listeners. So this is a big thing, right, because America was embarrassed, and so trying to find actual accounts is really tough, because nobody wanted to give one, because they were so embarrassed by it. There was one in particular that I read, but it's heavily speculated, from a woman who was shouting out the window, "It's the War of the Worlds, it's the War of the Worlds." She knew H.G. Wells' work. Why you would shout, "It's the War of the Worlds" out the window and not, "It's not real, don't worry."
Did she ejaculate it?
She was ejaculating everywhere. Everywhere.
She ejaculated
All the people in the street
world.
ejaculating all over him.
They didn't know what
But
it was.
she did say there were people literally looting and going crazy and stuff, and she was at the window, all high and mighty, because she was like, "Them fools, this is H.G. Wells, like, how do they not know this?"
Yeah,
But
that's just like the panic for Y2K.
Just
find accounts because everyone's embarrassed.
everyone is so embarrassed that it's just like, no, it weren't that bad, it weren't that bad. But there were some people that were like, nah, people broke up. There were a lot of people in put into hospital that night.
Yeah.
So it definitely got out of hand, but
I think
finding accounts was hard.
I think the easiest thing to say is we know what humans are like, and when we're scared, we do crazy and stupid shit. And all we're discussing now is it 1% or 10 or 50% of craziness, but that crazy shit definitely happened. I would have no doubt in us.
Yeah.
It's just a time where not everyone is as connected as we are today. Today, the problem is like fake news.
Yeah.
But back then, it's like
But
Every news
one person gets it from another
Yeah.
person. And you got the radio.
I think it goes both ways though. Now, if right now we create a new tech where you could like project into free space, and all of a sudden someone just projected a spaceship and land in, 1%, 5%, or 50%, I reckon would still go crazy. Like, some shit's happening. Someone's gonna say it's fake. Someone's gonna say don't get next to it. Like, we would still have a crazy reaction.
Now, right? You get like enough like footage from phone cameras of like UFOs or whatever.
Exactly, yeah,
You
which
see them,
can
like,
create
is
small
that real? Is
stirs
that
of
fake?
hysteria. Yeah.
And you get this whole.
But because we're a lot more clued up now, as you said, there's so much fake news, you're clued up to it. Back then, this was all they got.
Yeah.
And the reason it caused so much fucking issues is because it has a little tiny bit right at the beginning. If you tuned in at 8 o'clock, you would have heard it. Any time after 8 o'clock, you would not have heard it. And it says, "This is a presentation by Orson Welles of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds."
Right.
And at
That's
the end,
it.
And the end as well.
And maybe at the end it
end,
signs it out, yeah. So if you didn't catch that at the beginning, this was all just... So the episode begins with an introductory monologue based closely on the opening of the original novel. After which the programme takes on the format of an evening of typical radio programming, being periodically interrupted by these little news bulletins. So it had music and everything that they'd be like, "Sorry to interrupt this."
Wow.
But this is when I was listening to it on Spotify, and I was just listening to it, and these bits come up, and I was thinking to myself, that is terrifying. That is terrifying, because it feels like a news bulletin every 20 minutes. Or
Yeah.
It's very official, it sounds
It's
like.
really, really effective on how to actually make you think, oh shit.
You can listen to this on
Definitely.
Spotify.
Yeah,
We'll put the link in the description,
I was
because
gonna say, 'cause
it's
I
a
would love
great
to-
listen. It's so
You
entertaining.
can find the original one on YouTube. That's like 5 hours long.
I think that is the original one.
Oh, is
No,
it?
I don't think it's 5 hours.
No, because I swear it's got all the uninterrupted, because on Spotify it's just literally just a little bit.
Oh, does it cut some of the music
just the
down?
bulletins.
Do you know what? I do remember listening to it in uni, and I remember the intro being a lot longer of music. But yeah, in the Spotify version, it's literally on for about a minute and a half before it gets interrupted. But again, just the idea of doing it that way, of like a news
It's
thing.
genius presentation.
It was
It's
very
amazing.
clever, but
Especially for the time, that's fucking smart.
I mean, even now, if like it's still terrifying. It is terrifying. Like,
yeah, the first things it kind of interrupts to talk about is this, weird, unusual stuff coming from Mars, like explosions on Mars. So it's almost like a science report, and it's like, there's just been some weird things coming from Mars. Like if you look up, you can see it. It's kind of very on the chin, just like that's nothing. And then they just kind of, something's in the sky, something's coming closer, and it gets bigger and bigger. Next thing you know, there are people on the scene and dying. Like, literally dying live on the radio. Oh my god, it's coming out, it's doing it. And then it cuts, and it's like, not quite sure what's going on there. We'll try and get back there in a minute.
Back to so-and-so.
Terrifying.
That
It's
is
haunting.
terrifying.
Absolutely haunting.
And then you go back to like the big brass band. It's like doo-doo-doo, like the piano.
That's
and
great
stuff.
storytelling.
It's
though.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Great
really well. It's
storytelling.
about an hour long, isn't it? Like,
About an hour
the
long
cut
with
version.
the edited version. But basically just really, really lent into making it as real as possible. Only towards, I think, the last 20 minutes does it actually become more about a story. And you can tell it's a story, but as I said, it's an hour long, and so for the first 40 minutes, if you don't catch that beginning, you had no idea what was going on. The second half kind of shifts into a more conventional version of it, and that kind of, I think, allowed them to, not get in too much trouble, and he even ends it by saying he was dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo to a large public, basically, for Halloween. It was just a little prank. But they got heavily indicted for it. Like, they all got fined. They all, there was a lot of shit going on.
Oh shit!
What? And because so many police were called out and ambulances were called out because people were going crazy, that they got in a lot of trouble for it.
Must have known, and they were smart enough to be like, right, this is going to be a great storytelling device, and we're going to cross the legal lines of, we'll introduce it as this, we'll outro as this, and we'll segue into this. But they knew that in that 30 to 40 minute window, if you'd have caught it, it's just a news report popping on. I would believe that now.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I would believe it now.
100%.
If I called it at that time, I'd be like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if you do, hopefully when you do listen to it, it just has this eerie throughout the whole thing, because it's people trying to act professional, but you can tell they're acting a little bit scared. So, like, they're trying it, because back in this day, it's all very, very well spoken, everyone's bloody blah, 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 all the time, everything's all everyone's got this kind of tone and everything. And they're really trying to keep it together, but then when the fear starts to happen, you hear it, and it's like, hearing a presenter almost like shit their pants is terrifying.
Yeah.
But
It's set in America, by the way.
and they set it in America. Orson Welles was American, so this was an American thing.
It happened in New York, didn't it?
Because it was about the Martians coming over from New Jersey, and so people in New Jersey thought that they were going to look out the window and just be dead, because apparently it was already wiping out all of New Jersey and coming into New York. So people went a bit crazy over this.
It's quite cool because you get radio calls from different air bases and fighter pilots.
Yeah.
And then they go dead. Like, it just cuts out and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Things get spicy, you know what I mean?
We're losing. Jesus. I'm getting nervous hearing about it.
So, funnily enough, that wasn't the only time the broadcast happened, because other countries took it on and thought, that's a great idea, despite all the fines and all the outrage it caused. So then we skipped to 1944, during a world war. William Steele, who was a writer of The Shadow, which Orson Welles was the lead role in, so they probably crossed paths, wrote a very similar adaptation set in Chile for a Chilean radio station. So the broadcasters had given a week's on-air notice of their intentions and mentioned the fictional nature of the broadcast twice during its proceedings, trying to avoid the craziness. But of course, the same blind panic that had engulfed America took hold, had done the same thing again. In an odd coincidence, a law had literally been passed a year previous in Chile, banning the use of incendiary radio broadcasts likely to cause upsets to listeners. So they got fucking destroyed financially.
Why would you
find out the arse? But that's the thing, they really tried to avoid... That's right. They really tried to avoid doing it that way. They just wanted to make this War of the Worlds thing for everyone to enjoy.
It's the wrong
but just
time.
could
It's
not
the
get.
wrong
They
time,
could
man.
not nail it. Just could not. And during a war, terrible idea.
Yeah.
So that was just a little Chilean issue.
A little, yeah.
Chile-
And then we move on
Chile.
to Quito, Ecuador,
Oh.
where they fucked it royally. This had me dying. When I read this, guys, I could not believe what I was fucking reading. So the year was 1949, shortly after a world war.
Jesus.
The date, February 12th, and the place, Quito, the Ecuadorian capital city and home at the time to some 250,000 people. It should have been just another routine, dramatic broadcast by the city's principal radio station, but the adaptation was really dramatised and evolved to shock the nation more so than its... more so, Moreso. Oh my god, I thought it was a foreign word. We'll cut that.
No, don't cut it.
More so than its predecessors. So, what this company did, so they owned a radio station and newspaper building in the same building. So the newspaper was on the bottom floor, radio was on the top floor. And for weeks leading up to it, the newspaper had decided it'd be a smart idea to put UFO sightings and things like that in the newspaper. Really just feed the public a little bit of fear. Not only did they do that, they then got in two very big famous artists, like musicians, to come in and perform a new song live, which they interrupt. So this was a big deal. So like a lot of people tuned in to hear this new song because these were like really big musicians in Ecuador. And so it was like, oh yeah, really, really cool. Tune in. Oh, we're really sorry to interrupt this massive thing that lots of people have tuned in to hear, but there's been an alien invasion.
Fucking Jesus
So,
Christ.
same thing. Everyone went into panic, but this time it was stirred even more because there were tales of the clouds were moving really weird that night, and like it looked creepy outside. So people were going outside and seeing shadows in the sky because it was like, you know, a weird lighting. All it takes is a weird night. People began rioting. So the broadcast had an actor portraying the mayor of Quito, saying, "People of Quito, let us defend our city. Our women and children must go into the surrounding heights to leave the men free for action and combat." They had an impersonator come on and do that in the style of their mayor. Again, this was just...
executed.
Oh, is this all in Spanish?
This is
Ecuadorian
Ecuadorian or Spanish? I think it
Ecuador,
would be
South
Spanish.
America.
Yeah,
South American, yeah, so Spanish.
I
Portuguese, I don't know.
cannot think my way through this. Okay,
Yeah.
this is not about the story now.
No,
This is
you're
just them.
asking
is-
for it.
It's just a prank, bro.
That
you know
was
what I mean?
the most
prank,
tactical
bro, just a
prank
prank, relax.
ever.
They genuinely believed that the writers were trying to create a civil war, but they weren't. They were just doing it wrong. Like they just didn't think this through after everything that had happened previously with two other broadcasts.
Okay, so
Who
hold
done this one? Was it,
Fucking
like, do you know who was in charge of it, like personally?
I do, yeah. I have a name.
Is it still Orson Welles
Is it
helping
Morso?
out? Or?
It was
Moreso.
director
Moreso.
Leonardo Paez
No,
and
no.
script from Alcarez, who was the one who had worked with Thingy previously.
Oh, I see. So it's all, yeah.
Oh no, that was the other
So-
one. No, he hadn't worked. There was links between every
Yeah.
one of these broadcasts where people had worked together, so it's like the idea
Gotcha.
passed on.
Yeah.
But still,
Come
I just
on,
need to
man.
reflect this top of my head. So the newspaper a week before starts.
A couple
See-
weeks.
A couple of weeks sprinkling in
Little
like
fear
a little
dust.
bit of fear, subconscious
Great.
stuff,
That's
right?
awesome, though.
Then you've got people not just listening and possibly missing. You've got like people's peak time attention for music and artists, famous people. So now you've got like let's say 20-30% more of the population listening because of this reason. Then that's where you choose to interrupt and announce this shit, and then you get your leader's voice to basically say women and children go, leave the men to fight.
Yes.
This is like a
Now, even
troll.
imagine it nowadays. Imagine you've got the radio on, you're driving around at work, right? You listen to Radio 1, and it's like, oh, the next song is James Arthur doing a live lounge cover or something. Cool. He's doing his cover. Then they interrupt it and they say, there's things going on, like crazy things going on, scary things going on. Then you hear, like, our Prime Minister talking. Then you hear,
Yeah.
like, the President of the
then
United
you
States
see
talking.
people
Can
run
you
it,
imagine,
definitely.
even nowadays, that would actually really freak people out.
Yeah,
Really, really.
100%.
And this is at a time where radio was all they had. So as you said, the hysteria had nowhere else to go but in word of mouth to your neighbours.
but-
Like, and so it just spread and spread and spread.
In a country that's, not the most stablest.
No,
sort of
especially
country
after a
as well.
war. Yeah. So
No offense, obviously.
no. And this is the thing. There was people who were panicking who were panicking about Martians, but they were also terrified that it was Peru attacking because they're in the midst of a border war.
Oh, really?
So, it was like, even if they're wrong and it's not Martians, it's probably the Peruvians coming over to kill us. Like, so, and the same thing happened with Germans during Orson Welles' broadcast. Like, they thought it could be the Germans.
I think they mentioned that in the actual broadcast. I think they mentioned at some point.
It could be the Germans.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think he does. When it first lands, I think there's speculation of it being
because I think
something from Germany.
Point, I think there was something going on in Germany with the Nazis as well.
Oh, it was
because it was just before World War II, wasn't it?
Yeah, literally right as it was happening.
Yeah, I think they were getting a bit spicy over there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So everything's going anarchy, right? Everyone's going crazy. So the broadcasters realised, oh shit, this is bad. We've really fucked up here, and instantly stop it and say, apologise, and they're like, please, pleading for calm, basically, across the thing. To which the public went fucking ballistic because they were like, you what? You fucking what? People.
Understandably.
Until this moment, no one had really been hurt. No one, not much had been damaged. It was very tame. But at the apology, they went mental. Loads of people just went, and I'm talking like thousands of people, went straight to the radio station.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Took the newspapers that they had, set them alight, and threw them straight through the building. There was over 100 people in this radio building.
Oh shit!
A few people died. A few people didn't get out.
Damn.
The director and writer of it managed to get out, but were being hunted. They were literally. People were going for them. Were going to kill them. They were trying to kill as many people in that building as they could because they were livid.
The broadcast into like a thing and spreading it across the world is one thing, but they went too far.
They made it personal. They really made it personal. It's like here, our beloved
because
home
you kept
public.
adding
Adding
to it. Man.
Yeah, like really stirring. And the thing is, they had two broadcasts to learn from previously, which have both been really badly fined.
Do you reckon if they'd done it in a different country, it would have been the same outcome? So if they did like a country like, I don't know, for example, somewhere relatively chilled out, sort of like, I don't know, like Switzerland or something like that, like a.
Let's put it this way: there would have been consequences.
Not
the
saying there's nothing
consequences
wrong
would
with
have been.
There would always be negative public reaction.
Yeah.
Like, so even if it's just a handful of people, something crazy is going to go.
I think,
but like you say, Ecuador was a border war with Peru at the time.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So that's
there was some of that wasn't.
If those some of the things weren't present, but I think. If you didn't have the president impersonator, that's where because you can still say we've interrupted the music. It's all you could still almost fend it off for a narrative purpose and keep interrupting. But the fact that you've had we know this voice, we believe this voice, so it must be real.
Yeah.
That was the step. That was the step.
So now you've created this hysteria, and then when I'm sorry, and all you've done is just direct all of that random chaos to you.
If I was the mayor, I'd be pissed.
Oh, yeah, he was, and they've sued and everything. Like this radio station got absolutely destroyed, but because it was not as developed back then in those in Ecuador and stuff. It was a lot easier for the radio station to just point fingers at the writer and go, it was the writer and director, they did it all, they fucked it. The writer had to go underground, could not pop his head out. Managed to get a court case out the way and just had to flee the country. She could not stay there because the radio station just pointed their fingers at him and was like, this guy did it.
Like any company would.
Yeah, pretty much
That was
scapegoated
the
him.
style at the time, though.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was much easier to... It was a style at the time. But yeah, about 6 to 20 people died. Damn. Just people were making human chains out the window to try and escape, and people fell, and it's horrifying. Then obviously just people went crazy in the streets, so the military rolled out. They had to tear gas people. It went into a city emergency. All these ambulances were chocked up, couldn't actually help people who needed it.
I've never heard this before.
It was insane. You had people fleeing to churches and stuff, and then coming out and burning buildings down.
Three separate occasions this happened. Same sort of presentation, right? Different levels of hysteria and consequences. But is this all still reflecting the original? Is this all still trying to advertise War of the Worlds, or is every single time it's been a new author trying to kind of sell their version of an alien version?
It's
technically a different story. But they've used the same advertising technique.
They've used the exact same style over and over again. The H.G. Wells, I'm a narrator, I'm going through it. This is real. They've copy and pasted that idea and
Yeah.
made it their own in their own country.
And relevant to their own
So
country.
everything is personal. Like, that's the problem. And then leaning into it more and more and more and going, yeah, there's UFOs. Yeah, here's the mayor telling us to do that. It just was so much for the public to take in. So that's why they thought that the Paez had literally planned for a civil war. But only recently, in 2017, his daughter came forward because he had died, so he was safe. So his daughter came forward and basically told the story of, no, he loved his country. He just loved the War of the Worlds and wanted to tell the story and really,
that's
you know,
really
make a
sad.
name for himself. And he lived a good life. He actually went and lived in a different country. He was a radio broadcaster over there. He actually wrote some songs about Ecuador that Ecuador loved because they didn't know it was him writing it. So yeah, you know, he
But I do
lived a
wonder,
life.
like, who was the catalyst who was like, no, don't just tell the story. Let's put it in a
Let's hype it.
Sell the
Let's
story.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's
fit
fake
in a band and
newspapers
do-
with UFO
Well, that's the
invasion.
thing. They
I bet
blamed
it was
Paez,
some, I bet it
but
was some
See-
higher up exec. It was like, oh, about this, try this.
yeah, well, someone had to approve it. You know,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
And
it's
he was
go
like, no,
through.
it wasn't me, bro.
Yeah, you know, they were all
But the
responsible.
thing is,
That's crazy.
if you
Yeah.
put the amount of stuff that they thought of on paper, like in a whiteboard, we all love this H.G. Wells story, and I don't know, we've heard how they done it and how it kind of worked, and throwing it on the board of like, oh, we'll put it in the newspapers, we'll get these artists, and then interrupt. Oh, we'll get it in person. That's like a labour of love.
It's
Everything
meticulous.
sounds really exciting in the
Yeah.
room, but then the reality is like, no, you're actually, you're going against yourself.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
realising
Going
it.
too far.
And it's walking on new ground, and I think that's the thing. Like, you know, Orson Welles was the first to do it, and it was so new that even though he didn't like do all the UFO sightings in the newspapers and stuff, it was still enough to freak people out because it had never been done before. But then every time they tried to grow it, because it was like, well, they already know what happened there, so let's like make it a bit better. Let's make it a bit better. And it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you don't know what's happened every time. Like, can you not see it causes outrage every single time? It's consistent. But yeah, the Ecuadorian side was absolutely horrific.
They should do another one. They should do another one.
I mean, nowadays I think it'd be okay. I think they could get away with it.
Something like Radio 1 would be.
If Radio 1 did it, I think it would be really interesting. But that's all the broadcasts. So yeah, Orson Welles' weren't even that bad in consideration.
I've never heard about it.
Yeah, I
It's
was
crazy.
It's very interesting, very very
Because
interesting.
you always hear about the Orson Welles ones, but you never hear about the
Yeah.
others.
See, I never knew. I knew there was multiple stories, but I didn't know it was like recreate. I thought it was just the same
Same
broadcast, copied and pasted in different countries.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was
No.
new people writing something brand new and saying, "Let's try it
Yeah,
with
that's
our
news to me.
stories."
Yeah, I didn't
That's
know
the
that
thing
either.
with the War of the Worlds, like the original H.G. Wells version, because it's set in the UK. The reason it's so real is because he literally geographically uses his environment. So if he's walking through Woking, he will mention little buildings, little streets, little bridges, little lakes that instantly, if you're from Woking or you've ever been through Woking, you're like, oh, there. Like they
Makes
try
it
and blow one
very
up with the
real.
gunpowder mills in Waltham
Yeah.
Cross, which I thought, oh my god, we've gone there on a school trip. Like we used
Waltham
to go
Abbey.
there.
It's
Waltham
like,
Abbey,
oh,
sorry.
Waltham Abbey,
Yeah,
represent,
it's like, oh my
yeah.
god, represent, yeah. But you know, these are real places. Like the whole journey is him trying to get to Leatherhead, and so it's like, you know, all these places that we're like, oh, I know Leatherhead, oh, I know Woking, oh, I know, you know, London. So every time they adapted it, it was like, you know, the Ecuadorian version, they would use really specific places that people know,
Yeah.
and it's like terrifying because it's like, I kind of want to go there and check if everything's okay. Like, you know, you're instantly thinking, this is right around the corner from my house.
Because the American one was, I think it was Princeton University, the observatory, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Something
I think
like
it was
that.
Princeton. But yeah, just very cool, very terrifying.
So
but
the story itself and its details was already personal without any of the hype.
yeah.
Like it's already personal.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
what sold the
personal
book.
account of one man getting to
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
It's
and
very
all the
real.
shenanigans along the way.
Because even if someone gave you a book and went, "This is completely fictional," but read it, you don't even go into necessarily the history of, "Oh my god, what might have happened," but like, "Oh, I've gone down the road and I don't know, that pub's blown up." Oh man, could you imagine? Like you have to. It takes you to there. Like, could you
Yeah.
imagine if
Yeah.
that happened? Fuck. Yeah, if that did blow up, oh shit, then that would happen afterwards, and very very personal without any
it's
of the
in
hype.
it's in the time and space that these people are alive in, and you're writing about that
Yeah.
right there and then
that's
and
why
doing
the
it right
story's
there and then.
timeless.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you can adapt it as many times you want. It'd be the same.
Yeah,
story.
you just
Yeah.
have to change it to tweak
Yeah.
the setting, but the
Modernise it.
core
This
is
is why it's
very
a classic.
relevant.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
100%. And like all the newer versions, they've always had to nerf technology because that's such a key important thing to just not have tech and be
Yeah.
put back in the Dark Ages. When this book was written, they had nothing. The best form of defense they had was a boat, a ship.
The Navy.
The Navy. That was all our forces. We weren't in the sky yet. So like, yeah, just it's a really grounding story. These broadcasters
that's what makes the Awesome World one interesting, coming from the HG Wells one, because they do have flight.
They do have tech. Yeah,
they do have flight, and they're completely useless against it. And then they start coughing, the gases.
Yeah, the smoke and everything.
And then when he starts coughing, it's like, and you hear him like, dying.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Hearing someone die.
And they got face masks. They talk about face masks.
Yeah, they have gas masks on,
gas masks
but they
not
don't
working.
work. So people are dying in their gas mask. This is all on a live show on Awesome Wells' one, but definitely worth a listen. Put the link in the description because it's a great listen if you're just on an hour's journey. So moving on, there are a load of other adaptations. I'm not going to dive into every single one of them because there's been a lot. BBC in 1950 done a 6-episode radio drama. Could not find fucking anything on that.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
I've been trying to find that.
Couldn't find it. The War of the Worlds 1953 film was actually it was received really, really well. Had a budget of $2 million back then, was quite a lot. They set it in Southern California rather than the United Kingdom. I've watched half an hour of it, and so far I'm really, really enjoying it. It's actually really good.
Is it cheesy?
No, it's very, very true to the book. It's just they've added a few little things because again, it's in a little bit of a it's set in 1953, I think it is.
Right, yeah. And every time you tell it, it's got to be the current.
It's got to be the current day.
It doesn't work.
So everyone's watches stop and stuff like that, and it's like they've added a few extra things to it, and everyone's watches are now magnetized. Like he drops a pin and it like goes to his watch, and he's like, yeah, it's like an EMP. Like, so they've taken out something's taken out all of our tech. Looks at a compass, and the compass is pointing towards where the finger's landed, not north. And it's like little things like that. We're like, that's a nice touch. I kind of like that. Okay. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. In 2011, it was chosen to be placed in the National Film Registry, the same as like Toy Story and that. Like it's considered culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Same as Shrek as well.
Same as Shrek. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That's great. That's great.
It
deserves to be. They had The War of the Worlds 2, The Next Wave, not written by H.G. Wells. War of the Worlds Aftermath, again, not written by H.G. Wells. Apparently in that one, Sherlock Holmes makes an appearance, and it's written from the narrator's point of view, but not H.G. Wells. Yeah, my sister was telling me about that one, and it didn't sound good. This one was actually looked amazing, got very bad reviews. But it was The War of the Worlds Goliath, which was a 2012 anime. And it's about, after the attack happened, they salvage all the alien Martian parts and they prepare for the next one. And so we're actually prepared this time, and it's actually more of a Gundam fucking showdown. But it wasn't received very well. It wasn't great. But I watched the trailer and I was like, I'm kind of in this. I wouldn't mind watching it.
Okay.
So yeah, we're kind of up to date. I mean, the only other things really to mention is the BBC 3-part series they did in 2019, 2020. I think it was during lockdown. It was quite good. They veered very heavily away from H.G. Wells towards the end. Did you watch that?
No, I didn't know it existed.
It's interesting. It's not a bad watch because it does some things loyal and then other things just goes completely off, and it was very confusing. Like at the end, I think they literally are on a red planet, and you're like, what is happening? Do they go to Mars? Very confusing.
Is it weird because like if you're gonna do War of the Worlds, you either like modernize the original or do your own story War of the Worlds style? Don't try and dip into both.
Yeah, that's literally it. Like so they set it in the time of H.G. Wells, which I loved because I was like, that's what I want to see. I want to see it from that. That exact story.
That era.
Okay, right.
But then they changed characters.
So they tried to adapt it.
Yeah, and they changed some of the technology, which was really frustrating. Like, there's a heat ray, which is, this was groundbreaking for H.G. Wells because, actual lasers were only invented in 1970 something, and he wrote this book in 1890 something, and he was talking about laser beams and heat rays. But in the BBC version, this heat ray, it comes up as a sphere. And it just starts going pew pew pew. It's something like Doctor Who would do. It's fucking awful. And knowing in CG a chrome orb is the easiest thing to CG because you can literally just have a chrome orb and put it there and it's done. And it just looked janky as hell. Okay. But there were some moments that were kind of cool. Like, they put in this nice little bit where there's a baby crying and one of the tripods is walking through the streets and they're like, we've got to save that baby. And no, we can't. The baby's crying and this fucking thing just shoots at it. And they sit there for a minute like, oh my God. Then you hear the baby cry again and then it just fucking shoots it again and again and again until the baby stops crying. So it's like little moments like that are like, oh, that's kind of fucking cool in a weird way.
Yeah,
like,
kill
it's
the baby,
dark.
That's cool.
I mean, but it's
Yeah.
kind of dope, isn't it? Like, you're like, oh shit, that's dark. Like,
Fuck.
yeah, I mean, if you heard, like, if you were an exterminator and you heard a baby mouse, you gotta kill it. Like, that's your job. That's what these things' job were. It was to wipe out humanity. Like, they don't care who you are or what you are. They're gonna kill you all.
If I remember correctly, so from what I'm understanding, things have dropped from the sky, right? This is the general consensus. Something's dropped in the OG story, and then something else is brought, and it's like mothership-wise, everything comes, right? From outer space.
Kind of. These 10 cylinders are shot from Mars. And
Okay.
like, they starts off in like this observatory. They see these 10 things shoot out from Mars.
From a gun.
From a gun
Yeah,
propulsion thing. And a couple of days later, one lands very close to where they observed. And then the next day, and they see
That's
another
when it
one
happens
landing.
again.
And then the next day, they see another one landing. And so they're all these 10 cylinders are slowly landing throughout. Now, obviously, on like day 2, the first one is already, what they do is they construct the tripods in the pit they land in. So, like, you hear all these weird sci-fi, like, drilling and hammering and stuff, and they build it there and then, because these things are literally just brains. They're so smart, but they can't actually operate too well. Gravity on Earth is a lot heavier than on Mars.
They're sort of like a big mound of, like, organ.
Yeah.
With, like,
Okay.
They're
like
just an
beaks
organ with
and-
tentacles, and they're massive. They're like the size
They're
of a bear.
like, kind of like kidney, I guess.
Yeah.
That people drew.
Yeah, like a weird bug-like bear that doesn't have much...
Have you ever played Bloodborne?
Not really, no.
No, it's all tentacles and...
Yeah, no, I've
sort of
seen
thing.
it before. Because the only reason...
You're just talking about like a Cthulhu type stuff.
Yeah, Eldritch, sort of like
Cthulhu.
It is kind of like a miniaturized Cthulhu, but doesn't have a lot of actual strength itself.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what the Spielberg version, when the Martian comes down and they're like, crawling around and stuff, they're actually not a threat at all. Like
In that physical sense.
the Tom Cruise version.
Oh, was that
That's
Tom
what
Cruise?
I was
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
I didn't know. Was that Spielberg?
Yeah, it was.
I didn't
yeah.
know that. 'cause
The
I've never
Tom
seen
Cruise
it.
one, I swear to God, the twist, and it worked, I guess, for the film, if I remember this correctly, was like, they're not aliens that are coming from outer space. They were aliens that were underground the whole time.
No, so they come from outer space
What?
in lightning storms. I mean, I'm kind of half on board with this idea and then kind of hate it at the same time. So, in the Spielberg version, they've done this thing where a lightning storm happens and it EMPs all the tech.
Yeah.
And then later on, you see this reporter who was filming the lightning storm, and you see that Martians are coming through the lightning and going into the ground, and they had buried their ships there years and years and years ago,
Yes.
waiting for the
That's
right
right.
moment to
That
come.
sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Until
That's
you
really
think
cool. That's
this
really
is set in a
cool
time where there are subways and plumbing. How
Oh,
the fuck have they
yeah,
not seen these?
yeah.
It
Yeah,
kind of just
fair.
opens up a lot of questions. Why didn't they attack sooner when there was no technology? Why did they wait? If they come and put these things here, why did they not come with them? Like, it's very confusing, but kind of cool at the same time, I guess.
I've
The
never
recent-
seen it.
It's
The
not
recent
bad
one-
until the end.
Is there like a series?
Of
And there's
War of
like
Worlds.
yeah.
You mentioned
And there's
this.
like a
You said
girl.
there's a series now.
she's, blind, but then sometimes she can see, and I don't know if that's.
Are you sure you're not thinking of like the John Krasinski film?
No, it's a series that came out.
Oh no!
I feel like I have seen a series.
And
for
there's
War of
like
the Worlds
a
somewhere.
there's
Oh,
like lots of
watch
little
it.
robot dog things that are running around and killing people instead. Let me see.
That sounds more like Black Mirror.
Sounds like Doctor
It
Who.
does. It's,
Yeah, I don't think definitely no robot dogs in any series. Unless it was in the BBC, and I've just deleted that out of my brain.
It was so
Watch it.
shit.
Yeah, it wasn't. It just had moments that were like cool.
Is
it?
Well, it's on Disney Plus, so
Oh,
Yeah.
is it the French one? Is it French by any chance? Because that's the one that's on Disney Plus.
it's set in London as well.
Oh.
Oh. This
Yeah.
there's so many fucking versions
Yeah.
of this thing.
But it was like I didn't finish it. Like it's kind of started dragging a little bit. It started going kind of Walking Dead kind of stuff.
Ah.
Like
I
loads
don't-
of survivors.
I don't
coming
think there's
together.
a
Yeah.
season 2 of this because there's season 1
Yeah.
or one season 2019. So either it was one and done.
How many
or-
episodes was it? Was that BBC?
No, I think this is the French one because I'm seeing some.
Three
Right.
seasons.
Oh, like BBC.
2022.
I'm seeing 8 episodes for this, and it was from
8 episodes per season.
2019. 8 episodes.
Similar time to when the BBC put out the 3-part episode. But I have seen that War of the Worlds on Disney Plus. I think it's the French version.
It says it's about a 3.5
Oh, that's very different.
out of 5.
Well, that's really commendable.
On Epics.
This is one of those things like a lot of
I haven't even seen that one,
mediums. Stories converted
I don't think it's
to TV, to move to a physical presentation of it is difficult.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to interpret what everyone is imagining in their own
then
way.
I think it's
So after hearing all of it, I'm kind of
Very
more,
much
I'm kind of ready to watch it now.
robot dog things running around.
I think they've just used the name and done their own thing.
I am
Because that
getting
looks very
way
different.
too excited.
So
I just
if you
want to listen
think,
to this.
so if you're gonna watch this, would you recommend listening to the album or listening to the actual OG broadcast or the HG
No,
broadcast?
listen to the album,
Yeah.
and then I'd say listen to the Orson Welles one,
Yeah.
and if you've got time, read the book, and then compare all three, and then
Yeah.
go back
Yeah.
to listening to the
It's a different experience on all of
I'd
it.
say listen to this book, back to this, and then you'll be like, oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
the book. Oh, they missed this bit. Oh, but that's
Yeah.
cool. Oh, they did this.
Is it
different.
just cool to have the same experience 3 different ways, or is it more like one can inform the other one or paints a nice picture?
They're different experiences.
Very
Just
different experiences, yeah.
Different.
But they're all good in their own way, I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
say.
Oh, yeah. Well, not all of them. I mean, this one, the album is great, the broadcast is great, the book is great.
They're
Other than that,
They're the main
everything has been a bit iffy.
And
Everything else
all
is a bit
3
iffy.
have been through and by H.G. Wells.
No.
No, sorry.
No. So the well, inspired by, yes, like almost copy and
Based
paste
on.
in the style.
So based on.
But
even.
yeah, newer version. So the
It's
musical
different ways of telling
version.
the story.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
basically
the
like
original story was done by H.G. Wells.
Yes, that was where the original idea
Okay.
came from. So like this is
Alternate
called Jeff
adaptation.
Wayne's The Musical Version of The War of the Worlds.
And
That's what
this,
it's called.
and this is the original one. There's a different version. They made a
parody.
newer version. It's got Liam Neeson in it.
It's got Weird Al Yankovic
It's
in it.
all right in it. It's all right. But don't try and compare it to the original, because
No.
the original is like
Top
So-
tier.
The one who done the album, what's his name?
Jeff Wayne.
Jeff Wayne.
I don't want to sound naive, but who is this person?
Honestly, there's not much else he's done.
Is he a music composer or is he
Yeah.
a narrator?
He's a composer. He composed all the music for, obviously with other people as well. Composed the music for it. The narrator is Richard Burton, who was quite a big actor at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, his voice sells this whole
And it's
idea.
amazing.
Like,
And
it's
then-
very good.
So when you listen to this, you listen to narrator Richard Burton, and then you go to listen to the modern one. It's the narrator is Liam Neeson. It's a bit off-putting, to
Yeah.
say the least.
Yeah,
But it's still
He's
worth
got,
a listen.
he's
to.
got a good voice. If you can stop hearing the Liam Neeson in a voice, I like his voice.
You do
So-
get past it
I-
at some point.
he mumbles. That's my only issue
Yeah.
with him. It's not his Irish. It's the mumbling.
No,
He
but-
just mumbles. Like,
Leonard
what
Nimoy
happened?
would do it, don't you think?
Leonard Nimoy
That
would be
amazing.
fantastic.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, he would actually do it really well because he has a really nice, well-spoken voice.
Yeah.
So what we will do is now.
Get like Brian Blessed to do it.
Oh my god! Wow! Just constantly. No one would have believed.
In the last years of the 19th century.
I would pay so much money to hear that version. Oh my god. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll take a little break from you guys. You'll literally just have a second where we're not here. We're going to go away, listen to this Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds for an hour, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it together. You're going to get bits of the story. You'll hear basically the story of the War of the Worlds in this version. You all love music, so you're going to love this, I hope, because everyone else has loved it. If you don't,
Go home.
fuck off. Yeah.
Get out of my house.
So yeah, we'll be back in an Uno Momento.
So are we going to do, I guess, an ad break here?
We'll do an ad break. You guys listen to an ad break while we listen to the War of the Worlds.
Hold on. And we're back. That was amazing.
We
Why don't we
have
do
to
that after we come back?
You can't cut
I
this.
just want to trick
For
everyone.
fuck's sake, sir.
And now we go to an ad break.
I haven't heard a thing,
It's
but
like
I just
Inception.
I just don't want to. I'm just like, well, that was amazing, guys.
You don't want to.
I just don't want to
Yeah.
listen to it.
Alright,
I'm done.
Break. Let's shill some products.
If I just give you some sound
Shut
bites,
up. Wait. It's ad break. Shill some shit. We've got to pay bills.
We interrupt this weekly scheduled podcast with breaking news of a silver comet that has landed in Enfield marshes. People have gathered around curiously speculating the extraterrestrial phenomenon, and we go over to our reporter on the scene, Jimmy Jameson. Jimmy, what's the situation over there?
Thanks, Finney. We are on the scene here in Enfield Marshes, where the silver comet looks somewhat like a cylinder. Shiny and peculiar. Oh, hang on a second. Something's moving in there. The cylinder is twisting. Like a lid being unscrewed. Oh my god. Something large is emerging from inside. Oh Jesus, it's grotesque. Like a bug the size of a bear. It is holding something. Oh my god, it's a weapon. It's firing fire on terror! Ah! They're all dying! Jesus Christ! I'm burning! I'm alive! I'm burning alive! Ah! It hurts! Ah!
I do apologise. It seems like we've lost contact with Jimmy on the scene. We'll try to get back to him as soon as possible. Hold on, I'm getting something coming in. Right, but we will take you over now to Lenny Leamington. With his eyes in the sky, Lenny, what are you looking at right now?
Yeah, Vinny. It seems that the comet was actually a Martian spaceship, and they've risen up some kind of tripod wiping out everyone in the vicinity. Oh, including us. Yep, we're going down. Back to you in the studio, Vinny.
It seems we've lost communication with Lenny now. Not sure what is going on, but we have one more reporter on the scene, Benny Bennington, who was last seen trying to make peace with the Martians. Benny, can you shine some light on this situation for us?
Hi there, Vinny. Yep, it seems the Martians have begun their attack on humanity, and it seems that our best option is to just embrace our new world leaders and support them however we can. So, you know, all hail the Martian lords. Back to you in the studio there, Vinny.
Well, there you have it, folks. The Martians have taken over and we're all doomed. We hope you've enjoyed this message, and long live the Martian overlords.
And we are back. It was longer than we expected.
That's what she said.
Strong start.
We're also here with Gilly as well. He jumped in to listen to it as well.
Gilly,
yeah, so what did you guys think?
Well, saying this for the second time now.
I've had someone said it once.
Saying this for the second time now. That was fucking fun, but that was intense. That took a lot of more emotional and mental energy than I thought. So I feel a little bit like, whew, take a breath. But I think, especially being broken up into 4 parts of the LP, of the 2 LPs, like 2 sides, that definitely helped. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was definitely a good experience. It kind of makes me want to read the books and actually hear the actual original broadcast and everything to see how they done it, because that got intense.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to see what the actual broadcast that caused mass hysteria was actually like.
It's like the narrator's parts times 100. It's like there's no music, just sound effects and narrator, and it's just really, it's good. They're all very different experiences, but the book as well, definitely worth a read. What do you think, Fraser?
Yeah, it took me a little while to sort of get into the vibe with, but I think partway through the second one, I was kind of like felt in the world, like with the pacing of the story and how it matched up to the music. Yeah,
the second side.
Yeah. So I think it had more of a beat to it.
Yeah, I think the second side's probably one of my favourite, and the last side as well.
I was stuck between the second and the third. I quite like the third one.
What one's that? The Forever Autumn.
Second side.
I love that song.
Yeah. So much happens in it as well. There's a lot that happens in that.
I think the second side and the last side were again one of my favourites. I think
definitely.
There's a lot of story in there. Got to see more what is actually going on, but the music as well, the guitars, fucking incredible.
And that chunky one by bass,
incredible.
you know what I mean?
The chunky bass.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of drums through the LP player that I've got, but there is quite good drums in it as well.
Yeah.
But they were very downplayed for the way it was coming out. We listened to it on the old LP player, and the way it should have been listened to back when it came out, but obviously it loses a little bit of quality.
But I think that was kind of
it's authentic.
It was exactly. It was authentic. It was kind of a nice touch. There was a little squeak to your LP sort of player speakers. I'm like, but I feel like no, this is just our. It's just the way our one works. That's the way we would hear
it's
it.
the best way to hear something, isn't it?
But do you know what? Obviously, it's made with it's music in a sense, right? But it's obviously interpreted for the story.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that, like you said, once you start to associate the noises with the imagery that it's trying to create, so this is the aliens showing themselves or moving or shooting a laser or something, so it can get repetitive, but it's not so staggered where it's like, it's still always music, if it makes sense. It can never kind of loses that musical rhythm.
Yeah.
Whereas when you think about re-mentioning a detail in a story, you might repeat that sound 100 times. It wouldn't make musical sense, so it's like they had to kind of match the imagery with... I don't know, it was just a really, really nice...
It's structured really well.
The presentation of it was
really
beautiful.
Yeah.
It creeps you out. It creeps you out, and it takes you on a journey. And I think, it ticks the 2 boxes that it kind of set out to achieve, at the same time as being, just pretty fucking fun as well.
I wasn't sure if I was expecting it to be so sort of horrific, and so graphic. I thought it might be on the kind of vibe of like Cloverfield, where you don't really see anything going on, but shit's going on. Because it's kind of like body cam.
Yeah, but the descriptions are actually a little bit more in depth, and they actually see shit and describe it. But it's always like a little bit of a mystery. There's always like they give you something, but like not the full explanation, because otherwise it's like kind of kills your own imagination on it.
Yeah.
Just enough to freak you out to make you create
Is it
your own
very
mystery.
graphic in the books?
Yeah, similar things happen. Pretty much all the bits that he
Quite a few people
mentions.
get trampled as well.
Yeah, trampled. I mean, in the beginning when he jumps in the water to run away, he literally gets boiled alive for a couple of seconds because the heat ray goes across the water and just instantly makes the water boil, and so he's like all blistered up for like a majority of the book. Like,
and he goes around and he starts picking vegetables, and a lot of them like rotten and stuff.
Yeah, like cheeses that he's finding, they're all mouldy and that. Like he barely survives that. Where they get trapped under the house, that's 14 days in the book, and the guy that he's in there with is a curate. He's just lost his mind and he's an arsehole. He keeps trying to steal all the food. They're both in pitch blackness. They have punch-ups, like the narrator's like, I've had to punch him several times to put him back in line. And at one point he starts screaming, and so the narrator knocks him out, and that's when the Martian hears and comes down. And he just spends like, I think 8 or 9 days just under coal, like in a coal pit. Just he buries himself in coal and just lays there because he's just terrified they're going to see him. It's intense.
Damn.
So in the book as well, they're in pitch blackness, darkness, apart from this one little hole straight down into the pit where the Martians are eating. And so they're both fighting to see it, but they're both sort of going insane watching it at the same time.
Yeah.
It's really it's weird.
Yeah.
And like the holy guy, was his name the cleric?
The curate.
Curate.
Yeah.
He's crazy from the get-go.
Yeah,
Like, he's out
literally
of
from the
his
moment
mind.
he meets him, he clings on to the narrator because he's so scared of being alone.
Yeah.
And he just can't shake this fucking weed of a guy. But like he's just a toxic energy with him, and the narrator's constantly like, I pity him, but he's fucking, I just want to punch him constantly.
He knocks him out with
he does knock him out. Yeah.
And this is the guy,
candle.
obviously, in the album that he had, in this interpretation, a wife. And they were having that conversation, and she died.
In this
But obviously,
version,
in this...
in the book, no,
Right,
he was
there
just
is no
insane
wife.
completely.
Yeah.
I think the wife was put into this one to show how he became insane. Like,
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
the idea is
He's
he
breaking...
was going insane, and she was.
Yeah.
Cause I think that was the point of the song. Was she was trying to like renew his like faith and everything like that, and then when she died, that was like what finally snapped him.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
you
it
know,
was
so that-
a bit of an easier story to tell rather
Yeah,
than saying,
rather-
for days and days and days he got gradually more insane.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
easy to say
It's one
this
of the
guy
things where
was...
everyone-
You
Perhaps
got to
compress
mention
it a
it's
bit.
musical, not it's not
Yeah.
audible, is it? It's
That's
a
it,
musical
yeah.
album,
So,
Yeah.
not spoken word sort of
all those like extra qualities of a book that would give you all those extra layers of like creeping you out and survival stuff and boiling and shit, like all those extremes in between the song making you feel those vibes. Obviously they're having those very short but sharp narration moments. They have to take like, I don't know, 10% of all of that story and plant it in a seed, and like you said, give you enough to say, no, this is it. Almost like a D&D moment, like this is the environment. But then the rest is kind of left your interpretation with the song.
and then the music carries.
Yeah, and then
Carries your
just
imagination.
carries that imagination.
Yeah,
So it's
very
like
much.
it's like a story with like a trip or a journey that you kind of have to go through by
no, I get
yourself.
it, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
It's,
get
like,
to the next little
it's almost
checkpoint.
like one of those make your own
Yeah,
adventure books. Like that's the thing
Yeah.
you get.
Yeah, I thought about
You
that.
give them the premise of the story, and then the narrator's kind of like there to sort of like, this is happening in the background, or this
Yeah.
is what's happened.
Put it in the right
And then
direction.
then the music comes in, and it, you just let your mind sort of picture
Yeah.
what's going on, which I think is why it's so like creepy, because your mind just
Works faster
immediately
than-
goes like
Yeah.
trying to fill in these gaps, and you can't help but just think like like how bad it could be, and then you're
Yeah,
to
your
fill
mind
in those
always
gaps,
makes it worse.
your mind
Yeah.
goes into the
Yeah.
really deep like darker parts and that,
And
trying to
that's
fill
the
it.
scariest thing about like anything big and creepy, and I think that's what kind of Cloverfield nailed, was like not showing you it, and then they did show it and it was like, oh, that's a shame, because not seeing it, your imagination kind of goes crazy. But H.G. Wells really does a nice balance of giving you enough information to go, okay, but you can't picture it. Like, he says leathery bug, like that could be anything. It's like it's painting a very vivid description. It's
only
very
as
well
messed
written.
up as your mind makes it.
That's it,
Yeah.
like it gives you a few ingredients, and your mind can make whatever
That's
creation
it,
it wants
that's
to
it,
make.
no way.
Yeah.
But it's good because that's because the whole like the core of the book was the idea is the narrator is just like a random guy, like even though he was a journalist, like normally journalists are known for being able to like put into words and stuff, but they still have to work
document
at it.
everything.
So the fact that he was like when he first saw the Martian, he's kind of like it's always like vague sort of leathery sort of thing. It's because he's processing so much. He can't just immediately come out of a detailed description. Normally, that would take a day to sort of figure out, and you know, and making notes and everything. Whereas everything that's happening is all just, it's just recalling it from memory, and it's all just happening so fast, and like they made mentions of it where a lot of the time he was like when he was moving into London before the Thunderchild bit, he was in a huge crowd. It was just a mass of people
like
were just moving.
Wave of people.
So even when it was like things were happening, because he was always like running away from it, he was only like looking back, seeing what was going on, and then even his mind was thinking like, you know, what's going on over there, like flashes in the distance and stuff, and
it's truly from his perspective, as it needs to be, and it's true. You're going to feel even that lack of detail still adds to the story.
Yeah.
But speaking in like, obviously the more realistic sense, it was very, you know, well thought out to keep those amount of detail in
the Jeff Wayne version.
In this version especially. So it's kind of like, again, coming back to what we were saying, is if everyone's imagination is going to go somewhere else, that's what makes this so very more easily to talk about. If we all go watch a film, we have an opinion of it, but it is what it is. Whereas now it's like, well, I saw it like this, or I felt it like that, and I was like, I enjoyed this, or everyone's no matter what, we've all listened to something different without even realising.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of something cool about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit long, and I know the speakers were a little bit peaky, but yeah, it still holds strong. It's such a great story. It's such a great musical composition to tell that story.
But I guess there's nothing more, but nothing we can ever really say than to say, go fucking listen to it.
Go listen to it, 100%. I'll put a link in the description to the Spotify.
I don't think you could remake this.
No, they've tried.
That's the thing, I just don't think you could, because...
I tell you what, though, you say that, but you know, we were bitching about the modern one, but I think the... what's the song with the pastor in?
No Nathaniel No?
Yeah, that one. What's the actual name?
Spirit of Man.
Spirit of Man.
That was some deep Eastwick cousin to cousin combo. Like I was like, I have no idea what they're saying.
Eastwick.
They know
Eastwick.
Well, you know, I know his surname. I'm sorry. Or Nicole, right?
Nicole. Joseph Nicole.
I'm trying really hard. Okay, man. It's family dynamic. I put my foot in it. Let's just move on.
Spirit Man.
Spirit Man. It's good on the original, but in the new one it sounds so much better. I'm sorry.
You reckon? I do like the guy's voice in the new version.
It's so good.
But yeah, it has a bit.
I do like the original, but I think the newer version.
And they add dialogue in as well in the newer version. So the newer version, I think we've already mentioned it to you guys, but to the listeners, is Liam Neeson is the main narrator.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a little bit more updated. It's got a bit more like dubsteppy. EDM-y little beats in it and stuff like that. I think it is more pleasant on the ear nowadays, obviously for a modern ear, because it has like sub bass and stuff like that in it. But it takes away from the fact it's set in a different time. You know what I mean? It kind of plays on your mind a little bit, and they have these little added bits that
don't really work.
Hit and miss. Yeah, very hit and
miss.
What
era is the Liam Neeson one?
2012-ish. Oh no,
it's still set in the same time. It's the exact same thing, exact same sounds, but they've just
if you update the sounds,
changed a bit.
If you update the style of the music, you have
to
do a good job
of it though. They do.
Yeah. That's how I like it.
But they can't change H.G. Wells' original story.
It's not crap.
Fucking adding dubstep to it, man.
But it's not like wah wah wah. It's just in the background.
No, it's just that type of sound.
It's pleasant. It's pleasant to listen to, but it just doesn't hit.
It would make sense with like being aliens and everything by the time
that's what I'm
to have kind of dubsteppy, techy kind of sounds in there.
It does work for its purpose, but
I think that type of thing is more. You'd be more likely to approach it unless you love Liam Neeson. I'm nothing against it. Is like you listen to this,
like Liam Neeson in the prequels. It's just like Star Wars. There's something about the originals, and then there's something different about the prequels. You're like, yeah, they're good. They've got a lot of different cool stuff, but
it just depends on how you get there. You know what I mean? Like
the shit. Yeah. That's it. They're not as good. They're
episode 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars.
Yeah,
they were
1 and 2.
Yeah, in comparison to the ones that came out before.
Yeah,
so,
one's
alright.
Just 2's dog shit, and then 3's okay.
But even then,
when the original idea just shines truer, you know what I mean, and anything that kind of comes off it, it's like, yeah, but that thing,
it's not
the thing that started it was really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was our War of the Worlds podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Little rant, little reflect.
It was actually fun doing it.
It was fun.
in the same
It was
room.
fun.
It was really lovely. So
I think you know
thank
what, it
guys.
was such a weird and such an immediate experience. That's why for me it's like I had so many bits I enjoyed, but for the life of me I can't be like, do you know that bit with that? It's too fresh. So it's just more like this.
It needs
I need a moment to breathe with it, man. But I think definitely, it's like Rick said, now this has inspired me to go like to the book.
Yeah.
Then to the broadcast, and then maybe I might go back round and hit the Liam Neeson one. I can get there in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
But,
I think
mean,
before
don't
this,
think
the
about
only concept of War of the Worlds I had was the same Tom Cruise film. Like that was the only thing I'd ever known from
Yeah.
this. I knew it was a huge thing, but I never really understood why.
When I saw the posters for that back in the day, I was like, oh, War of the Worlds, that's cool. And I never saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, Tom Cruise. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It wasn't. It had moments, but it wasn't good.
It
Well, yeah, I was 12 at the time.
Americanized.
Yeah. Overall, it was a disaster.
I'll check it all out and set up my own tier list.
Oh, please! That would be amazing. That would be
And
incredible.
upload it to YouTube. What is up, guys? Fraser here.
I'm going to give you my top 5 War of the Worlds projects.
Yeah, War of the Worlds is pretty old, man.
I don't know why Fraser talks like this for some reason now.
What up, guys? What up, guys? That's
All
what
right.
Fraser sounds like.
Thank you guys for listening to another Red Jacks on podcast. I've been your host today, Charlie, and I'm here with
Rick.
Fraser.
Serhan.
and joined by guesting.
The guest of the guests.
The
The
expert.
guest of the guest special. And me, Joe.
And right at the end,
Matt.
Gonna get it, Big Willie.
We survived the War of the Worlds.
you did it, boys. You did it. Well done.
Can we go home now, please? Can we go home? I just want to leave.
This is